Hi, I'm Lynn, and like you, I love DIY videos. So I thought I'd start a channel where I try out crafts from some of our favorite YouTubers and let you know how it went and the tweaks that I made along the way. So let's give it a go.
So this first project is inspired by a macrame tassel tree that I saw on Pinterest. So I just have one of those wooden trees from Dollar Tree and some macrame yarn, and I'm gonna make some tassels by wrapping the macrame yarn around my fingers about 4 times. And just cut the end off. And then I'm gonna cut another little piece to wrap around to make the head of the tassel. Make sure that you have the cut end on the bottom. And I just did one wrap and one knot, or not even the knot, one tie, because you're going to glue it down, so it's not going to matter anyway. And then I'm going to cut the very ends off, and there you have a very simple little tassel. And I'm going to twist the bottom part of the tassel just to make it a little fluffier. You can leave it as is if you want, it's really up to you. And you're going to make a lot of these, so have a movie or something on hand that you can watch. And as you're doing it, you'll have the tree with you, because you want to make sure that 1, you're making enough tassels, and 2, see how you kind of want to lay it out on the tree. And you'll see that I kind of reposition things and tried different amounts in each row just to see how I wanted it, how full I wanted it. On the very top one, I just kind of spread the tassel out a little bit to make it fluffier. And then I just kind of went back in and added in tassels where it looked a little sparse. Now we're just going to take some hot glue and make sure you have the part where you tied the tassel off on the back, and you're going to put the hot glue on it. That way it doesn't come undone. And you just put it right down on the tree. And this is why it's good to have it laid out already. It makes it a lot easier. And then once you're done gluing them all together, you can trim it off, make it even, and there you go. Now to do the trunk, and I would recommend doing this before you put the tassels on. It would be a lot easier. I found that I was moving the tassels out of the way to make sure that I didn't get them in the glue. So this is just some twine that I'm wrapping and gluing around the base of the tree. You can see I'm kind of moving everything out so it doesn't get completely glued down, because I didn't want it to lose the fluffiness at the bottom. And just keep wrapping and gluing until you get all the way to that bottom of the base. And here I'm doing the last row on the front, and I'm just gonna flip the tree over one more time, cut the twine, and I'm going to glue it to the back of the base. And then I added a little more hot glue on the end so that it didn't fray. And there you go. Now we're going to make a stand for it. So I took some Tumbling Tower blocks from Dollar Tree. Wasn't sure how many I was going to need, so I took about 3 of them out. Glued 2 together lengthwise. And then add a little more hot glue. And you're going to want to stand the tree up when you're gluing the stand to the tree to make sure that it's straight. And I found with all the yarn in the front, it made it heavy. So I did end up using that 3rd block, and I glued it horizontally just to keep it straight. And then just added a little more glue at the very top to secure it. And that seemed to do the trick. There you go, your macrame tassel tree. This next project was inspired by a beaded garland that Breeze Arts made in one of her fall videos. I'll link it below. So I took one of the jingle bells, the big ones from the Dollar Tree, cut off the hanger, and took some more twine, and I'm threading on some large beads. You can do whatever size you want. I think I used the 1-inch beads, but I will double check for you. And just make it as long or short as you want. Also make sure the cat gets in the way. That is extremely helpful. And to me, that looked like that was good. So I'm going to thread it through the hanger on the bell itself and just tie it off in a knot. And I just did one because you're going to see I'm going to end up hot gluing the knot onto the bell underneath that little burlap bow to kind of hide it and also to help keep it secure. And then just cut off the end of the twine. Now on the other end we're going to make a tassel. So I took a package, I think it was those little mini trees, and just wrapped some twine around it 10 or 15 times. And then just carefully take that off and thread the end through the loops. And then you can just tie it on to the garland by making a knot right at the top. And I wanted to make it nice and tight to make sure that it didn't come loose. And just pull the strand down, it'll become part of the tassel. And you're going to cut the loops. You all know how to make a tassel, I'm sure. And wrap another piece around. Try to do it as awkwardly as I did. Makes life interesting. And then just knot that off again. I was trying to pull it down just so that I could avoid cutting it and make it part of the tassel, but I mean, it really wouldn't hurt it to cut those ends off. They did kind of stick out a little on mine, but I'm okay with that. And there we go. Our little Jingle Bell garland. Next, we're going to make a Christmas tree truck, and a lot of YouTubers have also made this one. So I used the truck that has the Christmas tree in it, but looking back on it, I really wish that I had gotten the truck that had the rails, and I'll explain why in a minute. So I just took some white acrylic paint, whatever we had, and some of the foam brushes from the Dollar Tree. These were the ones that are in the automotive section, and I used those because I like that it had the different sizes, and that's going to be helpful in this project. So I'm just going to give the truck itself a quick white coat of paint. Then I'm going to take some black acrylic paint and one of the smaller foam brushes and paint those wheels. Now, I had trouble getting in underneath the wheel wells, so I took a Sharpie and just used that to really make it more clean. Now, these are those two Christmas trees that you get from the Dollar Tree that come in the pack, one slightly larger than the other. I just pulled the bottoms off, and we're going to put these in the back of the truck in the bed. So once I figured out how I wanted to position it, I cut a little bit off the very bottom, kind of on a diagonal, so that I could glue it more flatly to the bed of the truck. Then I tried to glue the top down to the roof of the truck. And I say tried because, well, you'll see what happens. All seems to be well at first. Now I'm going to take that second tree, and I was trying to figure out how I wanted to position it. Not like that. No, definitely not like that. That's just embarrassing. Stop, Lynn. Yep, that's pretty much the way it's going to go. So again, I trimmed it a little bit on the bottom, kind of on an angle. And then I'm just going to take some hot glue and glue it directly to that first tree, at least initially. And then I ended up adding a little bit of hot glue to Oh, my dog had something to say to the bed of the truck. And then added some to the area of that little like wire stem on the tree and just held that down. I just really wanted to make sure it was secure. Now here's where you see I'll have the problem. Oh, it popped up. Well, let's try adding a little more glue and see what happens. Spoiler, it doesn't go well. Okay, so, oh, what's happening? I'm not noticing. I'm taking a Sharpie and I'm just kind of going along the edges to make a little more definition. And as you can see, I'm doing a spectacularly neat job of this. But that's okay. You can go back and paint it with white acrylic paint over the areas that are as amazing as what I did. This is where I noticed. Oh no! And in the end, I ended up just taking the glue off and saying, you know what, the trees are going to stand up. So we're making a stand for the truck itself with 2 Tumbling Tower blocks. I'm just going to glue them, the short end to the very back of the tire, and it'll just create a little stand and you won't be able to see them. Now I have a little package of like fairy lights on a wire. This is one that I think I just got as an addition in some lights that I ordered off of Amazon, but you can use any of them. I know I saw them at Walmart for like $3.50, and I've heard that some Dollar Trees have them. Mine don't have them, but if you can find them, whichever wires you can use is great. And I just kind of taped it down to keep it secure. And I did turn them on because I wanted to see where the lights were. And I'm just going to wrap them around the trees, just positioning the lights in the way that I think looks best. And once I get done with the top of that first tree, I'm just going to kind of pull it straight down on the back and tuck it into the bristles, and it really does hold it in place, and then wrap the second tree. Now you can see as I'm doing this and holding it up that you can see a light coming through the wood on the bed of the truck. So I am going to fix that in just a moment because I didn't like the light shining through. So this is where I realized what was happening and pulled it away and ended up just kind of pulling it over the battery pack and lightly taping it on, and that just seemed to do the trick for me. Now we're going to take that Farm Fresh calendar from the Dollar Tree and cut out the December preview that's on the back. Now you could just do it like that and glue it to the door of the truck, but I didn't like the fact that it covered up the handle. So I trimmed it down and cut off the part that says Christmas trees. And now I'm going to glue the part that says, I think, Farm Fresh, and it has some trees on it, right on the door underneath the handle so that you can still see the handle. And since some trucks have signs on the bed of the truck, I decided mine was going to. So that's where I glued the little portion that says Christmas trees. I was debating going back and forth about putting hubcaps on, so let me know if you think I should. Now this next project was inspired by Liz Fenwick DIY. She made something very similar. So we're going to make these wooden bead ornaments. Ornaments. Does anybody else have trouble saying that word? Anyway, I took some twine and I kind of looped over the very top of it, and you're just going to tie it off, and this is going to make the hanger for your ornament. You can make it as long or as short as you'd like. And then I taped off the end and just string some beads on. I used 2 smaller ones. You can make whatever pattern you like. 1 larger one. And then 2 more of the smaller ones. And that's where I wanted to stop, so I'm going to tie a little knot off on the bottom. And just a tip, make sure you double check that the knot is big enough that the bead isn't going to go over it. So see, I realized that here, and I ended up having to do a triple knot in this twine because it's on the thinner side. And then I cut maybe about 1/4 of an inch below the knot. And I'm just going to unwind that a little bit. And it's kind of like a little baby tassel on the bottom. And then just trim off that piece from where you tied it on the top. And I took some ribbon. This is black ribbon from the Dollar Tree store. And I tried a couple of different ribbons, so give you some different options. It's amazing how much the different ribbon can kind of change the look of the ornament, or change the feel of the ornament. I'm not sure if this looks like a funeral ornament, to be honest, but I do like black too, so I thought let's give it a go. We'll say it's sophisticated, not funerary. And I just kind of mess with it. I just tied it one time. I didn't do a double knot because I thought that would be too thick. And then just cut the end on an angle. Now I'm going to do it again with this light green ribbon that's also from the Dollar Tree. There you go. And then I also used that ticking ribbon that I'm sure you're all familiar with, also from the Dollar Tree. And I think that one's my favorite. Now I'm going to show you how to make another bead ornament. So this time I took a much longer piece because, as you're going to see, I doubled it up. I folded it over kind of in half and then just cut the bottom. So you want 2 equal lengths. And the loop is at the top. So we're going to tie it off. Again, make a hanger just like we did with the first one, except you're going to have 2 lengths of the twine hanging down from it. And again, I kind of taped the ends off to make threading it through the beads easier. And I used those same smaller beads that I had before, and I'm going to put 6 on each side. And then just pull the remaining twine down, and we're going to make another tassel. So I just again wrapped it around my fingers. I think I did maybe 10-15 times, something like that, however big you want it, and you can make it as long or as short as you want as well. And then I'm going to just thread one of those strands through the top of what's going to become the tassel and tie that on with a knot. And then I cut a portion of that off, removed the part that had the tape, and I'm just going to use that to wrap around the loops to make the head of the tassel. And again, tie that off with a knot. And then I'm just going to trim those off and cut through the loops on the bottom, creating our little tassel. There you go. Now on this one, I did the same thing, but I added some of that ticking ribbon in before tying it to the ornament. And here I am just kind of unwinding the strands to give it a little more texture. But you can always leave it however you like. And there we go, my very first DIY video on YouTube. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.